A powerful minister vanishes overnight, and no one's allowed to ask why. No press conference. No farewell speech. The resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan just appears, like a ghost note in the news cycle. But behind that one-line government memo lies a story older than democracy itself, a story of power, myth, and the Gark machinery that decides who gets erased. Most people see a routine change. But if you know where to look, the cracks in the official story are wide enough to drive history through. And what happens in these cracks? That's where the real decisions and the real dangers hide. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Pradhan's resignation isn't just a political move. It's part of an ancient pattern where myth and raw power decide who stays and who's thrown to the wolves. So, what really forced him out? And why do these stories always hide in plain sight? To answer that, we have to look at the oldest playbook in India, the art of erasure. Picture the Mahabharata's infamous game of dice. One roll, and a king loses everything, publicly. But by rules only a few understand. Now, fast forward to 2024. The game hasn't changed, only the costumes have. Pradhan's public image, tireless worker, people's champion, always out front. Behind closed doors, the rumors were louder than the applause. Whispers of deals gone sour. A pipeline of favors running dry. Promises made to the wrong kingmakers, ones whose names never reach the news. Here's what most people never notice. The timing. Pradhan's fall came days after a closed-door meeting that no one officially attended. No press photos, no leaks, just a sudden chill in the government's confidence. That's always the tell. So why the secrecy? It's not about protecting reputations. It's about protecting the myth of control. If the public saw the real story, the infighting, the betrayals, the deals with shadows, it would shatter the illusion that the system works by the rulebook. But the weirdest part? This playbook of myth-making is older than the Constitution. In India, the line between history and legend is thin, and sometimes deliberately blurred. Take the story of Shakuni, the master manipulator from the Mahabharata. He never wielded a sword, just influence, secrets, and the ability to erase enemies while smiling. Sound familiar? In every era, the real power is held by those who can make people disappear without a trace. Now, let's get specific. What actually triggered Pradhan's downfall? The official story is almost insultingly bland. But the record is full of contradictions. First, the economic numbers. Pradhan's ministry was under scrutiny for inflated data, numbers that looked too good to be true, because they were. Behind every record-breaking announcement, a quiet army of fixers and number massagers. But here's the twist. The numbers didn't just hide failure, they hid a brewing power struggle. A new rival, younger and hungrier, started building alliances in the lower ranks. The kind that don't show up in official org charts. Pradhan's supporters tried to clamp down. Suddenly, small leaks started appearing. Budget discrepancies, whispers of favoritism. But most telling, a string of unexplained transfers in the ministry. Classic move when you're cleaning house before a purge. If you're thinking, so what? That's politics? Here's what most people miss. These rituals are straight out of India's mythic past. Remember the fate of Karna, the outsider hero, betrayed by the very people he served, erased from the story when he became inconvenient. Pradhan's resignation is just the modern version. Less blood, more paperwork, same outcome. But the stakes are real. Every time a powerful figure is quietly removed, it's a warning to the rest. Step out of line, and you'll be next. And if you're wondering how these rituals survive in a supposedly digital, transparent era, well, that's the real trick. The tools change, the playbook doesn't. So why do we let it happen? Partly, it's because we want to believe the myth. If the system works, even if it's brutal, at least it's working, right? But here's the catch. Every time we accept the official story, the myth-makers grow stronger. And the people who get erased, their stories become warnings, not lessons. Let's zoom out. The pattern repeats not just in India, but wherever power gets too comfortable. From ancient Rome to modern Delhi, the tools of erasure, scandal, exile, resignation are universal. But India's twist is unique. Here, myth isn't just a story, it's a manual. And the mythmakers know, as long as the public sees resignations as honorable exits, the real power stays hidden. Which brings us back to Pradhan. What was his actual crime? Not a headline-worthy scandal, just the sin of becoming inconvenient. He lost the protection of the myth, and in the end, that's the only shield that matters. So what happens next? His name will linger, but the machinery keeps grinding. The new minister will step forward, fresh smile, same old promises. Another pawn on the board. The public will cheer, or yawn, or barely notice. But somewhere, another rival is already plotting their move. And the myth will update, just enough to keep everyone believing. If you're waiting for a neat ending, remember, real power hides in the stories that never end. The official version will close the file. The real version just moves to a deeper drawer. So next time you see a resignation flash across your screen, ask yourself, who really wrote that story? And whose name is being quietly erased while you're reading the headline? The dark machinery of myth and power is always running, just out of sight. And sometimes the most dangerous stories are the ones you're never meant to notice. But if you keep your eyes open, you start to see the fingerprints of mythmakers everywhere. And once you see them, you can never unsee how history is really made. So, are you still sure you know why Dharmendra Pradhan resigned? Or is it just another story, carefully written by the last person left standing? Because in the end, the truth about power in India is never on the front page. It's always buried in the footnotes. And if you want to see just how deep these ancient patterns run, don't miss our next journey, where the erasure isn't just political, but legendary. But what happens to those who orchestrate the erasure? The kingmakers themselves are never immune. Consider the tale of Chanakya, the original power broker, who could make or break kings with a single whisper. Chanakya's legend endures, but his own exit was as mysterious as the ones he engineered. Even the puppet masters eventually become puppets, caught in the same cycles of secrecy and suspicion. Kingmakers learn to trust no one, not even their closest allies. Today's eraser can be tomorrow's erased. The machinery has no loyalty. It only serves the myth. Let's lift another veil. The role of the media, supposedly the spotlight, but often a mirror for the myths. Every headline is a choice. What to reveal, what to blur, and what to quietly bury. During Pradhan's fall, notice how coverage was sparse, careful, never quite naming the real stakes. That's not just accident or laziness. It's a feature of the system. There are unwritten lines reporters dare not cross, and the price of crossing them is paid in silence or sudden transfers. Sometimes, the most dangerous scoop is the one you never print. But what about the public? We like to think we're spectators, but we're more like co-authors. Every time we scroll past an official statement, we vote for the myth with our attention or our indifference. The machinery of erasure only works if we agree to look away. But there's a hidden risk. When we ignore these patterns, we become vulnerable to them. Today, it's Pradhan. Tomorrow, it could be anyone. Your hero, your neighbor, your own story. The machinery is always hungry for the next name. Now, here's a plot twist. Sometimes erasure fails. The myth cracks. A forgotten figure returns, louder than before. Remember Jayalalitha? Written off, erased twice, only to storm back and rewrite the story entirely. Comebacks are rare, but when they happen, the mythmakers scramble to adjust the script. Every return is a glitch in the machinery, a reminder that the myth is never ironclad. But the cost of resurrection is high. The system punishes those who refuse to stay erased. Most never get a second act. Those who do, never forget the rules of the game. So next time another resignation drops, don't just ask what happened, ask who benefits from the myth. History's footnotes are full of cautionary tales, and sometimes secret blueprints for those paying attention. If you spot the pattern, you're already ahead of the story. And if you're wondering how much is myth, how much is machinery, maybe that's the only real power left, knowing the difference. Because when the next ghost note appears in your news cycle, you'll hear what others miss, the ancient music of power, still playing, just out of sight.